Hello, good morning everyone. Thanks heaps for that, band, that was awesome. And primary choir, thank you very much for that too. I always tried to be in the primary choir when I was at school, but I couldn't sing well enough and they told me to go away. So you've all reached higher heights than I have in my short time here. So yeah, no, thanks heaps for that. Let's just get this slideshow going. Please just wait for a second. Yeah, technology, I know, right? All right, sweet. Good to go. Yeah, so today I've been asked to talk. Creeva just said the theme was alive, so I was like, oh, I'm alive. I could talk about that. So yeah, no, this week's I've had fun this week. I'm doing my prac placement for teaching at Greenpoint, and you know the student life, especially the Kiran version of the student life, can be quite relaxed. So it's weird getting up at 7 and leaving at 4 from work, and so yeah, it's good to be here on the weekend. And I actually appreciate the weekend a bit now. So it's to start, because normally the weekend's a busy time for me. So yeah. So alive. I was thinking about we're all alive, and then there's one of the verses that I love in the Bible, Psalms 139, verse 13 to 16. Get out of the way. Oh yes, you shaped me first inside, then out. You formed me in my mother's womb. I thank you, high God, you're breathtaking. Body and soul are marvelously made. Yep, cool. I worship in adoration. What a creation. You know me inside and out. You know every bone in my body. You know exactly how I was made, bit by bit, how I was sculpted from nothing into something. Like an open book, you've watched me grow from conception to birth. All the stages of my life were spread out before you. The days of my life all prepared before I'd even lived one day. And I love how it talks about, in a different version, it talks about how like God knit us together in our mother's womb. How how He didn't just speak us into creation, and in the creation story, He spoke everything else. But when it came to creating us, to creating His masterpiece, to creating humans, He actually got down on the ground, formed us with His own hands, formed us, and then breathed His breath of life into us. And just how special and how amazing and how much potential He's created us all with. And I'm not a science student or teacher. I didn't do any science for a while at school, but I was interested in looking into how it talks about us forming in the womb, and that process is how it's just like miracle after miracle after miracle of us actually coming out and being born into this world. How just all this amazing stuff happens. So we're gonna get a bit sciencey for a bit now. Look out. No, so cell from your mum, cell from your dad meet. I'm not going to go into it anymore. So this cell meets, and it creates one cell. So half of your mum and half of your dad, 23 chromosomes in each cell meet. I can't tell you about chromosomes because I just read the word. So yeah, and create one tiny cell. And this is a cell. I think it's about 6 days after conception. So it's actually it's a bit bigger than what it actually is. But yeah, in that cell, I've got the stuff here. In that cell, that actually now forms a brand new DNA code. And DNA is like what makes us us. It's what makes you individually you. So everyone's got different DNA. And yeah, in that cell, there's actually, so DNA code, what DNA is? It's like a ladder. And those things are called nucleotides. Nucleotides. Hey. Yeah, it's good. That's my word for the week. Yeah, and then but the thing is there's only like 4 different proteins or nucleotides, and it's the order that they're in that makes us original and makes us us. And that's actually that code in that one cell. There's 3 billion. It's like a 3 billion digit long code that makes us us. So in that little one tiny cell, all that DNA, if you spread that out, it would get up to 6 foot off the ground. And that is what makes us us. And from that one tiny cell, then that's like the blueprints for you. And then that actually goes on over the next 9 months to make you. And yeah, so and then we're born. And then when we're born, and now when we're actually grown up, the body has 75 trillion of those, not those exact cells, but 75 trillion cells in the body. And if you stretch them out, that'd be that 6 foot long cell. But for 75 trillion, you'd stretch that out. It'd go if you got them all, it'd go to the moon and back 197 times. There's that much information, that much. We're not just, we're not just these beings that is formed out of nowhere. God has intricately made us who we are, and that's, and each of us are individual. So yeah, so that's us being alive, which I thought was quite interesting. When I think about being alive as well, I think of adventure, and I've done a couple of walks, and I've been a few treks and stuff, and I love that adventure. And recently I went to a thing called the Banff Film Festival, which is like an adventure film festival that has some cool different films about all these guys doing all these adventure sports and stuff. And there's one guy I want to talk about. His name's Alex Honnold, and he doesn't look like much. There he is. He's a bit of a kook, but he's a rock climber, and he's recently, over the last few years, he's absolutely just revolutionized rock climbing. You're like, how do you revolutionize rock climbing? It's climbing up a rock. But people have said, like, this guy is to rock climbing as Michael Jordan was to basketball. So he's like climbing stuff higher, faster, better than anyone else has done. He does a lot of free solo climbing, which means he's climbing without ropes. He's climbing up these huge cliffs and stuff. And there's just a quick clip here of him doing his stuff. And yeah. Is that sound plugged in as well? Sorry. Good? Sorry.
I'm Alex Honnold, and this is my ride. You gotta open the living room door. The idea of living in this when I'm like in my 30s kind of makes me sad a little bit. There's the bedroom.
Is that where the magic happens?
That is where the magic happens. I wish.
What are you rolling on here? Are these like 20s?
They're pretty baller though, huh? I did buy new tires last year. So we're in Yosemite National Park, and it's probably my favorite place to climb. My favorite place that I've been to, at least. It's pretty good. There are a lot of reasons to solo it, and I'm like, I don't need to choose one. I mean, for as much time as I spend thinking about how hideous it would be to just splat on the ground, I also think about how rad it would be to pop out with like a bunch of hot chicks on top. Okay, so basically on the last move of half dome, I just stalled out.
Just come back if you're not feeling it. I sort of snapped back into reality and found myself on this hideous slab like 1,800 feet off the ground. Basically doubt suddenly entered my mind. And like, I was like, okay, I'm all right. And then I just like stood up and it was like, no thing, it's just a matter of standing up.
What did your parents say when you told them you were doing that?
I don't know, Mom is like surprisingly psyched about it, but like, my mom is, I don't know, I mean, I came from crazy folks, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. But with him, I just love how he's just so casual about it. He's like climbing in like a shirt and loose shoes, and I don't wear a shirt ever. So, and he's rock climbing like that, and So for him like that's his idea of living, and that's what he does. And I love one thing he said. He's like, he's on this rock and he's actually freaking out a bit, and he's like, and doubts start entering your mind. You start thinking, oh well, I've got no rope. I'm up here, 2,000 feet up and stuff like that. And he's like, it's just a matter of standing up. It's just a matter of just ignoring all that stuff around you. You don't look down. You don't look anywhere around. You just focus on that climb. You just focus on what you're doing, and just up the rock you go. And I feel like for me, like in my Christian walk, I feel like for me in my life as a Christian, so often I don't feel like I'm standing up. I feel like I'm just on this ledge and I'm looking around. Oh, this is just freaking out, or just not even freaking out, just being completely distracted by everything else that's going on in the world and in my life. And I just feel like I'm not even bothering to stand up and do what I was created for. Like God's come and God's made me and made each one of us so intricately. He's put so much detail. He's put all His majesty into us. I feel like I'm just wasting it. And I want to tell you, there's a guy called Abraham, not the one from the Bible, but he's a Cambodian pastor. And I want to tell you his story and about how he stood up. So So Abraham, before he was a pastor, he was in like the version of the Cambodian mafia. And Cambodia is a country with lots of poverty and stuff like that. And wherever there's poverty, there's people taking advantage of the poorness of other people. So he was into people trafficking. He was bringing drugs in. He was doing all this kind of stuff. And so it turned out he was on the run from the police. And so he was running, and he decided to hide in this village, in this like little remote countryside village. Figured he'd wait for it to cool down, and then he'd go out and keep on living his life of crime. And in that village, he actually met a Cambodian pastor, a local Cambodian pastor, and he said, this guy started telling me about Jesus, and at that moment, I just wanted to stop doing what I was doing, and at that moment, he gave his life to Christ, went to pastor school, Cambodian version of Avondale College, and became a pastor. And so he's now a pastor, and he's got his degree, and he then went about trying to find work. And he said he went to interview after interview, and as soon as people heard his backstory, kind of thing, they were like they just didn't want to borrow him. They didn't want someone who used to be in the Cambodian mafia to with his life of crime and stuff. They didn't want him to be a pastor of their church. So he was going to all his interviews and stuff, and he just wasn't getting the job. I just spat water everywhere. So he just couldn't find a job, and he was he's getting quite frustrated because he's like, God, I gave up. I was quite well off when I was in the mafia. I had a fair bit of money. I gave all that up. I've got a pregnant wife at home. We're expecting a child, and I want to be a pastor for you. I want to serve you, but there's just no opportunities. And so he'd gone everywhere where he could, and he had like one last interview. Like this was like his final shot. And so he went out to the interview, and he said to his wife, before he went that morning, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like today God's going to give me a job. God's going to give us an opportunity. And he went out to the interview, got rejected, came home. And he said, he couldn't even go in to face his wife. He said he was just so distraught. He was just so disappointed. He just didn't know what he was going to do. And he's like, they lived on this little river, in this little hut. And he said he couldn't even go into his house. He was out on the river, and he's just pouring out his heart to God. He said he felt like Job. He's like, God, I've given up everything. I've given up all my money, all that other stuff I had. I've given all that up to come and serve you. I've studied to be a pastor, and I've got nothing left. It's either be a pastor, which I can't seem to be, or go out to my life of crime. Like, what else do you want me to do? And he said he's just like sitting there, just crying out to God. And and he's just, and then after he'd kind of entered for a bit, he's just sitting there on the side of the river, and across the river, there's a bunch of slums. They're kind of like, what they do is they make kind of these houses. People come, and it's government land. No one owns it, kind of thing. So they kind of make all these houses out of just like corrugated iron and bamboo poles and stuff like that. So there's this massive kind of slum just across on the river. I think he said there are about 1,000 families in there, he estimated. So pretty big. And there's this slum there. And then he said, as he's sitting there, a bunch of army kind of jeeps kind of roll up and park next to the slums. And the guy gets out with a megaphone, like some corporal or whatever, and he's like, okay guys, so this is Cambodian government land. We want to build stuff here. So what's going to happen is we're going to put you in these trucks and relocate you And so you've got an hour to get out, and then bulldozers are coming, and they aren't going to stop for anything. We don't care if you're here or not, we want you out. So he said within the hour, all these families had packed up what they had, what little they had, jumped in these trucks, and he said, as the truck started driving off, he swears like he heard this audible voice, and the voice just said, "And there goes your church." And he's gone, "Oh crap, there's my church." And he said he just jumped on his moto, and he followed this convoy of jeeps, and he followed them. They weren't too far from Phnom Penh, which is the capital of Cambodia, or Phnom Penh, however it's said. And he follows them through out the other side, go out into the countryside again, and it's flat as, and they get to this swamp, and all the villagers got out, and they just put them in this swamp, and they said, "Okay, here's your new home. Just do with it what you will." And yeah, so he said, as soon as he saw he saw where they were, went back to his house, got home, went and saw his wife, and said, "Honey, I've gotten a job." And she's like, "Oh, she's sweet." And she's like, "Oh, cool." And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's not paid. It's just it's just with this church." So they uprooted their entire their life there in that hut, his pregnant wife and stuff, and they went and moved him and with these people. And now, because it's in a swamp, he was saying, in summer the water was kind of up to your ankles all the time, and then in the wet season it was up to your knees. And because it was so wet all the time, that disease, any kind of sickness would just hit the village, and disease would just sweep through. And so people were dying, people were sick. It was just horrible living conditions. So the first thing he did was he decided him and a few people would dig trenches and dig like a drainage system. So they drained all the village of this water. So the people at least had more of a chance of some kind of way of life, and without being constantly sick. So they kind of created almost this island. And the village is called Andong Village. This is just one picture of him there. It's still it's still quite simple, but at least it's not full of mud and water, and the people can live a better life. And then he said, okay, well, people are all the kids still have they got horrible teeth. There are people who are still getting sick. So he went into Phnom Penh, and he actually organised for doctors to come in on his schedule, come in every few days, and they'd look after the people of the village. So they look after the people, so the people start getting healthier. They've got a couple of schools there now. They've got farming. They've got a fresh water supply of some sort, so they're not just drinking water from drinking all this contaminated water on the ground. So he's gone and created this way of life for these people, this village for these people, and they actually can survive better off than they were before. And I was reading, and he was saying that after a few years of this, they'd established this village. He said the government came back again, and they're like, "Oh, you've created a nice bit of land here, so we're planning on coming back, and we're going to bulldoze down your slums again, and we're going to take it." And he said, "Okay, there's one road in and out of this village." He said, "We can see you coming. I'm going to get if we do see you coming, I'm going to get the people to go and get to safety, but I'm going to stand on that one road, and you are going to have to run me over to take these people's village away." And so he's stood up. He stood up, and he's just found something that he's just looked around and said, "Oh, God's put me on this earth, and these people need my help," and he's gone and he's helped them. And there's an analogy. I went to a thing called Bible Masterclass with the school I was with this week, and one of the speakers told this story, and it really spoke to me. So, well, I want you all to so the world that we live in is just picture this house. So we're all living in this house together, and it's this big house, but it's not a good condition. It's not in good condition. It's derelict. So it's like people who come in, they've had we've had fires in there and stuff. There's graffiti on the wall. There's just soot and just rubbish everywhere. And this is the house that we're living in. And there's a few different levels. There's the basement and stuff like that. So people are throughout the house, and this is the house that we're all living in. In the house, there's one window. There's one window, and it's just covered in dirt and grime, and you can't see anything through it. But outside that window, there's the most beautiful bit of scenery you can ever imagine. So I'm thinking there's these beautiful green fields, followed by there's this mountain range there. Sunset coming down. The mountains are turning pink, purple, all these beautiful colours, and it is just picturesque. And but from in the house, you can't see that. unless unless all you can do is you can start cleaning that window. You start rubbing on that window, start trying to clean it, and just get a glimpse, just get a picture of all that glory and majesty that is outside. And the window is so dirty and stuff. We can never fully clean it because we're still in this house. We're still stuck in this house, and there's still dirt everywhere. We can never fully clean it, but we can try and get a glimpse, get a picture of what's outside. We start cleaning the window, and some light might start coming in, and people see the light. Oh, what's that? And then they come and look at the house, and they start coming looking at the window, and they start trying to clean that window too, trying to get a picture of that light. Some people, if they see that light, then they go down through the rest of the house and start telling people about it. Start telling people, oh man, like you would not believe what's outside this house. You wouldn't believe what's out there. And we're living in this house, but there's something out there that's so much greater that I can't quite see. I can't quite understand it fully, but I know that it's better than what's here. I know that it's better than what's in this house, what we're living in right now. And some people hate the window. Some people hate what people are trying to do with the light. Some people are there with dirt and stuff and just throwing it out the window, trying to cover up the light. And and that window, that light, that glory outside is like the glory of God. It's like God, and and it's like we're living in this world that we know that He's out there. We can't quite understand Him because He's so much bigger and He's got all this majesty, but we can try and grasp Him. And from what we can see, we know that there's so much out there for us, and it's just so much better than what we have in this world. And all we can do is just tell people about it, and just through our lives, we can tell people about this light. We can try and scrub on that window as much as we can to open the light and reflect all this light into this world, so other people see the light, and other people, try and figure out what it's about and start cleaning on that window too. And I feel like for me, so often, I should be there with everyone else scrubbing on the window, but especially with how I am, around with my non-Christian friends, especially, I feel like I'm there just throwing dirt on the window for them, and I'm supposed to be there, showing them about this light. But I'm supposed to be like, guys, come look at this light, look at this window, come and help me clean it even. And I'm there just going, oh yeah, it's a window, whatever, and start throwing dirt on it. Just ignorate, go down to the basement of the house, do whatever happens down there, and I feel like that's my life sometimes, and then. God talks about how fearfully and wonderfully made we are, how He's knit me together in my mother's womb. He's knit each one of us together. And, He's made us for so much more than living in this house, so much more than just not even, I'm sorry, I'm a bit lost here, but He's made us for so much more than what we're doing. And for me, I feel like I'm not living up to anywhere near as much potential as what God's made me to be, because I should be there at the window 24/7, trying to illuminate this light for everyone else, and I feel like I'm not. And and there's a quote talking about how we're fearfully, wonderfully made. It's by St. Augustine of Hippo. I'm not sure where Hippo is, but it sounds fun. Stage ended there. Cool, I'll step over here. It says this: men go abroad to wonder at the heights of mountains, at the huge waves of the sea, at the long courses of the rivers, at the vast compass of the ocean, at the circular motions of the stars, and they pass by themselves without wondering. So often I feel like I'm there going, God, just show me how amazing you are. Show me what you can do in my life. And then I'm going, and God has made this amazing universe and this amazing world, and there's so much beauty in the universe, but He just spoke that out. For us, He actually took the time to form us and create us into these amazing beings that we are. And He's just like, just look at how much love I poured into you. That should be enough to show my glory. And I was watching a Louis Giglio film, and he was talking about how we're made, and he was talking about something called a cell adhesive molecule. It's called laminin. And what it is, it's this molecule that pretty much holds our DNA together, holds who we are together. And there's a picture of it here, and it's in the shape of the cross. And I could just imagine God, when He's creating us, going, what? One day these people are going to be smart enough to figure out, to build microscopes and look at what's making them up. And He said, I could just imagine going, I'm going to give them a sign that I'm there. That in them in them is me, in them is my glory, in them is all my majesty. You know, I just think that that we should never forget that. There's a picture of that. That's an actual picture of one, and yeah, and God of the universe, he spoke all this amazing creation into being, but for us, he formed us out of the ground. He put us together with his glory. And if the band wants to start heading up, and then we're all worth something. We're all worth so much more than we can imagine. And I just pray that for me and for each one of us, that for we're all in this house to now, we know that there's this glory outside. We know that there's this majesty of God outside, and that we're the ones who just we see that light, and it just inspires us to go out and tell more people about that light, tell more people about the majesty that we understand a little bit about, but we know that there's so much more and so much more love there that we can even imagine, so much more than this world, than this little derelict house can offer. And yeah, Ben's going to sing now.